Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm using the Spellbinders Glimmer of the month for May 2023, and I'm actually going to make 3 cards. I never make 3 cards in a video. They just makes the videos very long, so this is kind of a long video, but I hope you'll stick with me through it. In this month's kit there was also the hot foil that is, I think it's called Rainbow Confetti or something. So that's what I'm also using here. And I've got 3 sheets of like a smooth white cardstock. This is just box standard cardstock, nothing fancy about it other than it is quite smooth. And I've got a piece of hot foil facing up, so pretty side up. And then I'm putting my die or my plate face down into it and just taping those pieces in place. This is just one way of being able to foil. It just works for me when I'm doing it this way. So on the left you'll see the machine heating up. So at the moment it's got the red dot and it's just switched over to a green, which means the platform itself is ready. So I then flip all those pieces I've taped together upside down and onto the platform. So essentially you've got the hot foil plate facing up, the foil is now pretty side down, and your cardstock's on top of it. So then I press the timer and that takes about 1.5 minutes or something. Don't quote me on that. And while that's heating up, I'm going to prep the other 2 pieces. So once that was done, I put the shim and the plate that come with the machine on top of that, take it out of the machine, out of the hot foil machine, and run it through my Big Shot. It works really well through the Big Shot, so it's not an issue, and you just have to kind of roll it through slowly. So it takes a little bit of practice just to get that rhythm as to how slow you need to go, but it's really quite effective and it's really easy to do. So I've got the next one, the plate's ready again, platform's ready again, so I've popped the next one on. And like I say, while you're waiting for things to heat up or get ready, you can then prep the next piece, which is what I was doing, just to save a bit of time. And I also like to, once I've taken them out of the once I've run it through my die cutting machine, I then like to let them cool down a bit before I actually take the foil off. Sometimes it just falls off, so sometimes you just got to go with it, but yes, that's what I like to do. So you'll see I'm just going to work through each one as I have the first one. Now when I revealed this is the first one I actually ran through, you can see it's not foiled as well, and I've actually heard a couple of tips out there that if you leave your machine when you first put it on, because the second one worked out really well, if you leave your machine on and let it heat up longer than it's showing you that it needs to heat up, if that makes sense. So you know, let it heat up a bit longer than it initially does when you first switch your machine on, just so that it's really nice and hot, because like I say, the second and third one are perfect. On the third one I actually put my plates on while it was on the timer part of the process, just to see if that would help, but I don't think that made any difference. So I think it's more that my base machine wasn't hot enough yet, yeah, so that's just a tip if you have the same issues. And I feel like I'm going to sneeze, so apologies in advance if I go. Anyway, so now that I have hot foiled all of these, I don't need my machine anymore, so I'm going to just and you'll see here the happy birthday works out really nicely as well. Beautiful. So yeah, sorry, I'm probably going to go in a minute. You know, when you're just waiting for a sneeze. Right, so I have the pieces. Excuse me, told you. Right, so each sentiment comes with its own little, they look like funny half dies. So they fit around the top and bottom of the sentiment. So I'm still laughing about that. And so I'm just lining up the top of the die for the top of the happy, and then the one for the bottom, and just putting some tape in place for them. Now there's also the top of the balloon, because that's what it's going to create, and the bottom of the balloon. Now the bottom of the balloon is really easy. It literally butts up to the bottom section of the die that's on the bottom of the sentiment. The top one, I didn't clock this because you know me, I will do this first time with you guys on camera so that you can learn from my mistakes. so the mistake is, hopefully you can see it in the shot, that the top, the end bits of the sort of top of the balloon are not lined up with the edge of the die that is on top. Is going to cut the top of the happy. That made any sense. So I just needed to move it down a little bit more so that it was almost on the outside edge of the happy die, if that makes sense as well. You'll see in a second that it didn't line up enough to just pretty much pop out. So what it will do, if it's lined up correctly, is it will just create these little pips, what I call pips of little cardstock, and it literally will pop out. So the bottom one you'll see in a second. I mean, I used scissors, but the other two just popped out. But this top one, because I hadn't lined that die up, and you'll see I'm trying to line it up further down, so that it lines up with the sort of edge of the happy. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to just cut it and make it work. But if I'd done it properly, it would just line up perfectly and create those little pips, and then you just pop that section out. So easy when you know how. So I just took a craft knife and just carefully cut round and made it work. I will do the other two off camera just to save some time, but same principle. The top and the bottom section dies for the sentiments, and then lining up the balloon sections top and bottom as well. The other thing I wanted to do, and also why I used a larger piece of cardstock, is I'm using a stitched lawn fawn rectangle. It's the largest of the large set, and for all these balloons, this one I lined up as straight as I could, but for the other two I actually angled the rectangle die so that it looked like the balloons were kind of floating up at different angles. That makes sense. You'll see when you see them. Not sure how well it really worked, but that's kind of the idea that I had in my mind. And so I just lined that up where I wanted it, put it in, put some tape on it just to hold it in place, and then ran it through my die cut machine again to cut that out. So now I have a nice stitched edge around the sentiment and that window opening that it's created. So like I say, I did that on all three, and then on what I decided to do is two of them I'm going to use some backgrounds that I've already made. So this one I actually found a hot foiled background that I'd created using, and I did do a video on this, using Pinkfresh Studios. Can't remember the name of the set. Sorry. It was a floral set, and you basically had no, I'm talking rubbish, that's a different set. But when I bought that set, I also bought this chevron plate of theirs, and that's what you can see on the top of the screen there. So it's a hot foil plate that I had a piece of cardstock, sorry, that I'd previously hot foiled and just kept in my background stash. So what I decided to do was use this as a very simple card front. I put some thin foam adhesive on the back of one of the balloon sentiments, and just put and we'll just line up the hot foil behind it. So there's a little bit of depth. It's about 1 mil thick, this foam, but it's not going to be massive dimension, so it'll be fairly flat to go through the post and that. But it gives that sort of the highlight being the whole balloon. So the balloon's foiled, there's a foiled sentiment, and the rest of it's just very simple and white. And I just thought, let's just keep this quite simple. But I think it looks really nice. I think it's a nice, you could give this to anybody kind of card. So just putting, now that I've already got foam on it, I didn't want to put more foam tape on it. So I'm just using some flat double-sided adhesive on the back. And then it's going straight to a A2 size card, which you guys know I love making. So, and there you go. One very simple shiny card. Very shiny, that one. So for this second one, this is actually, again, I went into my backgrounds that I made. I have made a video on that as well, so that purple background that you see there. But because this is the one that didn't foil quite so much, so I kind of thought it had this distressed look, I thought, let's do that, let's distress it. So I grabbed my Uncharted Mariner Distress ink. It's one of the newer ones. Well, it's probably newer to me than anybody else, but I'm a little slow getting these things. But it's a really nice blue, and I thought it contrasted really nicely with the background that I have already made, which is the purple slither you can see there. You'll see more of it in a minute. But again, there's a whole playlist. I think I called it Fun Techniques, and that's where I'll put things like the videos where I just make backgrounds and just play, basically, which I always encourage you guys to do. So what I did was I inked around the edges, very simple ink blend, leaving the center where the balloon bit and the sentiment is, you know, leaving that without any ink, so that it still gave that almost like a highlight, so it's sort of almost like a shining. And then because this paper isn't meant for water, I then used some alcohol, isopropyl, can't say the word, alcohol on it instead. Now it's not going to react the way that water would normally react with a distress ink on the proper, you know, paper, but it still reacted, and that was what I wanted. I just wanted that little bit of, you know, distressed reaction going on. So that's what I did. And then for this one, I'm going to stick this flat to the embossed background. That background, that purple background that I made, I used if I remember right, it was I want to say it's Kaleidoscope Simon Says stamp embossing folder when I made it at the time. And it just gives this very cool look. And then I used some Nouveau products, I think, to create the rest of it. But like I say, there is a video on that if you want to check that out. That'd be great. So just getting this adhesive just stuck all over this, and it's a fairly strong adhesive. I cannot remember the brand, unfortunately, but like Lawn Fawn do a great brand, a great adhesive, dry adhesive, and wet adhesive would work just as well. So just getting that stuck in as many obvious places as I could, and then I will take the background to the front, if that makes sense, so that I line it up from the back. And then there's the distressed looking balloon. So because I want a dimension on all of these cards, I'm now going to put the dimension on the back of this piece. So with the first one, we did the dimension between the balloon and the background, and then stuck it flat to the card. Now we're doing it kind of the other way around. We've stuck the card pieces, the background and the balloon, flat to each other, and then we will lift up with the foam at the back. So again, it's the same 1mm high foam that I'm using. I got a giant roll from Amazon, but it is acid free and all that, so it's pretty cool. And it just gives a little bit of height, but nothing major. Sometimes I like that good like dimension on my cards, but sometimes you just want a little bit, so it's just there but not so obvious, if that makes sense. And then stuck that to an A2 size card as well, and that's the second card done. So just some different ideas for these cards. So for the third one, I'm going to take some Kitsch Flamingo Distress ink. Again, I just thought this lent itself to it. So inking around the edges, nothing major. Again, just doing the edges and not doing anywhere near the sort of center of the balloon, so that can almost be the highlight, because with the shininess of the foil and the fact that there's almost like a halo of white around the balloon, it kind of just, I don't know, it makes it look like it's even brighter and shinier, kind of like the previous card. So once I've done that, that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to do any more to it, just a bit of inking. And then we're going to take some flat adhesive and add that to the back of the whole panel again, just like we did with the previous one. But this time we're going to create an actual shaker card, which is what these dies, the idea behind it was, to create shakers. So I'm just getting the flat adhesive all over it, and then we will stick some acetate. Now, I don't carry acetate at home, like I just don't ever buy the stuff. So if you, like me, don't do that, there are other ways of doing this. So packaging would work pretty well, but it might be a little thinner, so just be careful of what you actually put inside your shaker. But what I actually used is, because I store my dyes in a completely different way to the way that Tonic, in their kits, the way they send them to you, they come on like a thick acetate type of plastic. And so I kept all that because I thought I'll use it for something, and it actually came in real handy for this. So I just cut a piece of that down, and this is what it looks like. And just once I'd taken all the backers off, I then stuck it to the back of the balloon, and that way you create your window. Now, you don't need to make this into a shaker card. You could just have a panel that looks like a window, with the acetate there, and that could make a cool look for like a, you know, if you have a window, an actual window die that looks like a window, a proper window, you could do this with that, and it would look more authentic, if you know what I mean. So that could be quite cool, just for, like, you know, I'm thinking Christmas cards for some reason. So once I've stuck the acetate down, I'm now going to add foam. And the foam, I want to make sure that I am going to double this up, but I'm also going to make sure that the foam butts up as close to the edge of the next piece as possible, because what you're creating is a well for all your, like all the fiddly bits to go inside. So once I'd got the first layer on, took the backers off, and then got the second layer stuck to it. It's very easy to do. And also, because I'm on the second layer, I can kind of butt the second layer even closer to the first, so that I can ensure that there aren't any gaps, basically. And I did contemplate doing, what's the word? Like adding extra in the center, like where the sentiment is, just to stabilize it a bit. But yeah, it would have created like a barrier for the shakety bits. So once that was done, I took that tape off. Now, before I'd taken that tape, the backer off, I should have run some anti-static powder around the edge, because you'll see all my little bits land up sticking to the edge. But it's fine. And then sticking the back over the top of that, once I put those little pieces in there, or the little sequence mix in there. That sequence mix comes from a Simon Says stamp card kit. Can't remember what month it was, but it was a birthday themed card kit, so it just made sense. And I thought all the colors in it, there's some holographic ones, there's some pink, some blue. I just thought they all actually worked really well with the hot foil and the way that it hot foiled, and the color contrast and all that stuff. So I just thought it worked really, really nicely. And just, I got to use some sequins, because I always forget that I have these things. So I love them, but I forget because they're not on my desk. So once I've done that, it's already on 2 layers of foam. So this is a chunky card. But I just stuck it flat to an A2 size card, and there you have all those jiggly bits, and you can see that some of them are sticking to the top. So here's all 3 cards, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you got some inspiration from it, to drag out your hot foiling machines if you have one, or some form of hot foil. If hot foil is not it, then maybe do a similar thing, maybe with some embossing. There's ways to create little windows that you can either make shaker cards from, or just use them as a nice sort of element, if you like, on the card to create your card fronts. So I hope this was fun, guys, and I will shiggity see you later. Bye for now.